This is your Barbados Today evening news update for Wednesday, January the 31st, 2018. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. Topping our news, a dire economic warning from the country's central bank governor today dealt a punishing blow to continuing demands for wage increases for public servants. The National Union of Public Workers has been anxiously waiting on the Frontier Stewart administration to resume pay talks on its demands for a 23% wage hike after attempting to stage a national shutdown almost 2 weeks ago. But against the backdrop of falling foreign reserves, high debt, and projected minimal growth this year, Governor Cleaveston Haynes made it clear that there is no room for a pay hike.
An increase in wages at this time, the question is, how are we going to finance it? We already have difficulty financing the existing expenditures. So if you have an additional increase in wages expenditure at this point in time, what is going to be the source of that financing? We are setting ourselves up for what I would call a very disorderly adjustment, because in the absence of financing, what you will get is a further buildup of arrears in the system, which helps no one. We have to move in the direction of being able to eliminate arrears in the system rather than to have a further buildup. And therefore, adding expenditure is not going to be helpful in that particular situation.
The central bank governor, though sympathetic to the plight of civil servants who have gone without an increase for almost 10 years, says the broader picture must be first considered. He emphasized that any rise in expenditure could force the government to resort to other measures to keep the country afloat. Governor Haynes forecast that 2018 will be another difficult year for the country with minimal growth prospects.
The Barbados economy is forecasted to grow in 2018 by approximately 0.5% to 1%. Achieving this forecast is dependent on the strength of the performance of the tourism sector and the speed of implementation of investment projects. Ultimately, the medium-term growth performance will hinge on the performance of foreign exchange-driven activities. Tourism and international business services remain critical, as does the emerging alternative energy sector, which has the potential to create energy independence and enhance competitiveness.
The central bank report comes on a day when the International Monetary Fund issued its own warning that Barbados was on a downward slide. The Washington-based financial body cautioned against any rise in government expenditure, calling for deeper structural reforms to achieve fiscal and debt sustainability. The fund warned that the cost of living was set to rise even further. In a strong statement, opposition leader Mia Mottley says the reports confirm that the Barbados economy is sick. She charged that all Barbadians were paying a high price for the government's failure to take serious remedial action. Mottley says time has run out and it is now up to Barbadians to rescue the country.
Will we continue to listen to a government present another failed plan after 7 failed plans? Or will we embrace the fact that real, meaningful change is now required to stave off the worst? The choice is now clearly that of the people of Barbados. This picture, as painted by both the central bank and the IMF, begs the question as to how much time Barbados has left before decisive action is taken. We constantly hear Prime Minister Stewart talk about how much time his government has left under the provisions of the Constitution before he calls an election. The people of Barbados have to ponder if this really ought to be the preoccupation of our Prime Minister, given the perilous state of our country and given the fact that the Parliament of Barbados dissolves in 34 days. We insist that the people of Barbados need to be given an urgent opportunity to have a say in the matter that is before us.
In other news now, 4 students received multiple stab wounds while on board a bus along Paynes Bay, St. James around 8:41 a.m. today. A 15-year-old girl, 2 14-year-old boys, and a 15-year-old boy were injured. According to preliminary investigations, school children from 2 secondary schools in the north of the island were on board the bus when 2 students became involved in an altercation. Police said the injuries were not classified as life-threatening. The girl and one of the 14-year-old boys were transported to the QEH by ambulance, while the other 2 injured students were transported by a private vehicle. Police are continuing their investigations. The incident has been strongly condemned by the Ministry of Education. It, however, said it was awaiting a full report from the police before issuing its own statement on the matter. The ministry urged students to always ensure their behavior is at a high standard.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Welcome back with news from the region now. Jamaican lawmakers voted unanimously to extend the state of public emergency in St. James until May. They are hoping it sends a strong signal to the criminal underworld that legislators are determined to arrest the record murder rate in the parish. More in this report from Television Jamaica.
As expected, 14 days was not enough for the security forces to use extraordinary powers to put a lid on crime in St. James. So in the House of Representatives on Tuesday, a resolution from Prime Minister Andrew Holness
to have the state of public emergency and the emergency powers regulations remain in force until May the 2nd, 2018.
51 voted in favor and 11 members are absent. The motion is carried.
While we will support this, we urge that all necessary measures be taken to ensure that the situation is brought under control. The country needs a clear sense of direction which must be pointed to by the government that can give us comfort that there is a solution in train that we can all support as law-abiding Jamaicans who wish the best for our country.
And on the international scene, the board of USA Gymnastics stepped down today in the latest fallout from a widening sex abuse scandal involving the disgraced former doctor to the sport's governing body. USA Gymnastics said via Twitter that it was in the process of naming an interim board after receiving the resignations of 18 board members. 3 other board members resigned last week as Larry Nasser, the former Michigan State University and USA Gymnastics physician, faced more than 150 women in court over his abuse of 2 decades. He was sentenced to up to 175 years in prison for sexually abusing patients under the guise of medical treatment. And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. Now, you can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or even like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic evening.